Hey guys, it's Jack. I wanted to let you know that we're starting a new push for subscriptions here on Human Events Daily. So make sure that when you're listening to this podcast, you hit subscribe, you download it, and you share it with 5 of your friends. Make sure they're all going and downloading as well, because we need to get the signal out as much as possible. Look, we've done so much over the past couple of years since this show started, and we're only going to do so much more. Let's get it. This is what happens when the fourth turning meets fifth generation warfare.
A commentator, international social media sensation, and former Navy intelligence veteran.
This is Human Events with your host, Jack Posobiec.
Christ is king.
In a 6-3 decision along ideological lines, the Supreme Court siding with a Republican-led challenge ruling that coordinating spending limits for campaigns violates the First Amendment.
Tuesday's Supreme Court decision stems from 2 consolidated cases in Idaho and West Virginia that challenged state laws that say participating in women's sports is based on a student's sex assigned at birth. The Supreme Court ruled that this doesn't violate Title IX. Justice Brett Kavanaugh wrote states may maintain women's and girls' sports for biological females to address safety and competitive fairness concerns.
Good evening. The Supreme Court today gutted one of President Trump's signature policies, rejecting his effort to end birthright citizenship as we know it. In attacking that 150-year-old right, the Trump administration argued it, quote, degrades the meaning and value of American citizenship and doesn't work in a modern world where, quote, 8 billion people are one plane ride away from having a child who's a U.S. citizen.
Justice Kavanaugh joins the opinion in part, but not in whole. And let me read to you his stunning first paragraph. The court today holds that the order violates the 14th Amendment. I respectfully disagree with the court's constitutional holding. In my view, the executive order doesn't violate the 14th Amendment, but it does contravene a federal statute. Congress could amend that statute or otherwise enact new legislation establishing exceptions to birthright citizenship for children born to foreign citizens unlawfully or temporarily in the country.
President Trump responding to the ruling on Truth Social, writing, quote, the Supreme Court upheld birthright citizenship, which is too bad for our country, but we can easily make it up in Congress through legislation with the support of the president.
He went on to say no long and unwieldy constitutional amendment is necessary.
So this will be the first flight of what I think is maybe the greatest commercial plane ever built. I said to Boeing, what's the best one? They said, this is the best plane ever built. And you're going to have the privilege of flying it, and I have a privilege also of flying it.
Jack Posobiec here, Real America's Voice. Want to thank Patriot Mobile for making this trip possible, for helping us out. We're here on the first inaugural flight of the new Air Force Ones here in Washington, D.C. We're about to take off from Joint Base Andrews. You look at the size of this thing, you look at the way that it is set up. The president just gave us a briefing about some of the new features of it. We're going to see more about, of course, when they get on board. But incredible moment. We're happy to be here for Real America's Voice. We're very excited. Patriot Global, very thankful to them for supporting us, supporting this mission, provide this information to you, our audience. More from North Dakota, the Teddy Roosevelt Library. We will be there in just a few hours. Just had a chance to ask the president about declassification for 2020. He says, and more is coming. Right back, Jack.
Welcome to Human Events Daily. I'm Beau Davidson along with Beni Rae Harmony in our DC studio filling in for Jack, because as you just saw, he has been en route to North Dakota on the brand new Air Force One, the maiden voyage. This is monumental, folks. This is a huge moment for Human Events. It's huge for Jack, and it's also huge for America, if we're being honest, in our 250th anniversary celebration. We do have Beni Rae in our Washington studios. Beni, I want to get your reaction to this, because I know that you have been on Air Force One in its previous iteration, the recently retired one. Tell us a little bit about that experience and what you think Jack just went through in his flight to North Dakota.
Yeah, Beau, well, I have to say I'm a little jealous. I mean, I thought that the old Air Force One was as nice as it can be. I mean, we were talking before we came to air about when you walk onto Air Force One, you're greeted with warm towels to wipe your hands. Your food order is taken before you even take off. It's truly like flying on nothing before. But I've heard that this new plane, now the press seats are reclining, and there's even more benefits, which before press was kind of stuffed in the back. And hey, that's fine. We're just grateful to be flying on Air Force One. So he was definitely greeted with amazing service from the second he stepped onto that plane. And I'm really excited to hear what he said it was like.
Yeah, and I think the president mentioned also that this is a 747. It's top notch. Boeing apparently said this is the best one we've got. Qatar has it. That's why we have it basically, I suppose, kind of on loan for a few years until Boeing builds another 747. But the technology has improved. You know, that other plane was kind of old. So it's interesting you're saying, Benny, that there's larger seats for press. But I'm sure the technology has improved, too. I mean, we're getting bigger. We're getting more tech savvy. It's cutting edge. So as we look at this plane, I mean, of course, not having been on it, and I can't wait for Jack Posobiec to comment on this when he's able to, but it just looks like just a fantastic trip, and it seems like he had a great trip there. I know he's headed to the Teddy Roosevelt Library. This is kind of a monumental day when you think about it, Benny, in terms of American history.
No, it is. And, you know, I also just saw that President Trump, he arrived on a Freedom 250, what's it called? A Freedom 250, like a railroad, on a railroad, on a train. And this is the first time that a president has ridden in a train since I think it was the 1920s or something. So I love how he's kind of, you know, going back to those times and going back and showing history. And I just think it's so amazing that Freedom 250 and all the events that are surrounding this week, and him being there. I mean, Teddy Roosevelt was so instrumental to American, what we are and our conservation and just what it means to be an American. So the fact that he's paying, you know, tribute to that is just pretty amazing.
Yeah, and I think back to that speech, Benny. It's not the critic who counts. It's the man in the arena speech, an amazing speech that Teddy Roosevelt gave. I mean, he's an iconic president. I think it's very apropos that President Trump is there today taking this train ride to the Teddy Roosevelt Library. We'll have so much more coming up for you ahead, though. We've got a question by Jack Posobiec for the president. We'll be talking SCOTUS, earthquakes in Venezuela, the psychology of birthright citizenship with Dr. Chloe Carmichael, and, of course, government transparency and declassification. Coming up more on Human Events. We'll be right back.
In our way, and our golden age has just begun.
This is Human Events with Jack Posobiec.
Now it's time for everyone to understand what America First truly means.
Welcome to the Second American Revolution.
And welcome back to Human Events Daily. I'm Beau Davidson along with Beni Rae Harmony. We are filling in for Jack Posobiec because he's been en route on the brand new Air Force One to North Dakota. And earlier today, Jack had a very important question that he delivered to President Trump before boarding Air Force One. We want to make sure that you hear that question and the answer before we set up our next guest. So, guys, let's go ahead and cue that.
Real quick question. You've got D&I Pulte over there as the new director. We also know you have the task force set up on declassification, maybe talking about international, maybe looking at some declassification. Are you able to give us an update on that?
Declassify almost everything. And, you know, by the way, we have Jay Clayton is going in. You know, Bill Pulte's a very talented guy, but he's just there temporarily until Jay Clayton. And Jay Clayton is going through the process. And Jay Clayton, highly respected, and so is Bill Pulte. But Bill is there just for a fairly short period of time. But while he's there, I said, you can declassify whatever you want.
Do you think we're going to get some soon, or maybe 2020?
I told him you can do it as fast. You got to ask him.
All right.
But I think he's a friend of yours. I think that Bill will declassify. Yeah. I told him you can declassify whatever you want. So Bill's there just, you know, for maybe a month or 2 months or something. And Jay is going through the process. He's got a hearing in 2 weeks. Highly respected man, Jay Clayton. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Declassification of documents by Bill Pulte. And this has got to make some liberal heads melt because who knows what they're going to declassify. But he is the acting director of national intelligence. And to bring his expertise and wisdom on this subject, we want to welcome our guest, Joshua Lisec. He is the co-author of Bulletproof and Unhumans and also the author of the new book, History of Haitians in Springfield. Joshua, thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
So Joshua, let's talk about this, because Jack had a very important question for the president there. I'm not sure many people would think to ask this, but of course Jack wants to know it. The Human Events audience wants to know it. It deals with declassification of documents, because this has been promised. And, Bill Pulte may only be there for a month or so. We'll see. He's just acting interim DNI at the moment. But this is an important topic, because there's so many things that need to be declassified. So if you would just lay the land and the scene for why declassification is important to the American people right now.
One of the promises made that is to be kept by the Trump administration, as they have been very good at doing, is transparency, having the most transparent government that the United States has ever seen. And it, of course, it means revealing our secrets that had previously been just ours, but they belong to the people, the taxpayers who have been paying for them. Now, a lot of people balk at the matter of disclosing government secrets. But this is why I like Bill Pulte as the acting director of national intelligence. Many people may not know, but are now aware that Bill Pulte was a friend of Scott Adams, the great influencer. And Scott regularly promoted Bill Pulte back when Pulte was a private citizen, was doing investments in real estate and whatnot. And Bill has what you would call, or what Scott would call rather, a talent stack. That's these multiple skills that when you add them up, they create a unique, let's say, skill set that is unlike any other that anyone has, with the experiences, the credentials, and the successes. And what Scott regularly said about Bill is that he is really in the business of risk management. So you think about that person in the role of asking what is safe for the United States to declassify, what might need to be held back. You want someone who has the risk management skill set. That's why I think Bill Pulte is going to be doing the best that he can under Trump's guidance over the next few weeks.
Good point. Sure. So, Josh, if we would pause for a moment. President Trump is on the ground taking questions from media. So let's take a listen to it right now.
Any ideas for your own library, sir?
I'm getting some ideas. I'm getting some good ideas. Thank you.
Good to see you, sir.
Well, I guess that was the president. He looks like he's going to the library now. Maybe he did take a couple of questions that we didn't get. But, Josh, I want to bring you back into this. So let's get back to these declassification files that we were talking about. So, I'm thinking of things like the Trump assassination plot, the JFK files, COVID, fraud, maybe Epstein, the 2020 elections. You mentioned risk management with Bill Pulte, what American people should know based on the risk and reward concept of it. Of what I just said there, what are the types of things you feel could be declassified? Or maybe more importantly, what is important for us to know based on some of these ideas?
Something that Donald Trump has spoken of at length over the years has been the phenomenon of the deep state. And what this really is this is the entrenched bureaucratic employee-scape. Many of them have outlasted one administration to another. They're effectively unaccountable, doing their own thing. And this was a real issue with the first Trump presidency, where one of his employees, Joshua Steinman, would later reveal the president would give an order to the staff, and then they would simply ignore it or do the opposite. Steinman reported this in a number of interviews. And this was a real problem where you had a rebellion by the deep state against their own commander-in-chief. Just a real problem. And the phenomenon of internal, frankly, enemies, foreign and domestic, in this case domestic, going against the will of the president. Not a very good situation at all. And so revealing how corrupt the unelected, unaccountable bureaucracy has been nationally and internationally, including their involvement in ousting, if not assassinating, or potentially assassinating if given the chance. Those seem like the sorts of things that the people deserve to know. The extent to which the government has been set against the people, against the will of the people for decades now. And of course, when Charlie Kirk Turning Point arranged for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to ally with the Trump campaign back in 2024, in that announcement, RFK Jr. and Trump, they both said that it would be of utmost importance for the Trump administration, working with Secretary Kennedy eventually, where it made sense, to create a committee on assassinations. And this, of course, would be deeply personal to Kennedy. It's very important to the Maha Coalition. What he and his family have had to endure for decades really followed, let's say, anti-populism into the age of Trump. And previously had been the Kennedy family as a target. We understand the same with Richard Nixon. Nixon has been successfully reframed and resurrected as frankly, an America First style president, which we now believe is why he was ousted in given his resistance to communism, the infiltration of the Soviet subversion, and also China's Communist Party subversion of the Nixon administration. It can all come out, and in my opinion, it does all need to come out. The extent to which this unelected bureaucracy has opposed the will of the people and has opposed the President of the United States for more than 60 years now.
And Joshua, I have a question. People were really excited when Tulsi Gabbard took this position, and now with Polte coming in, where do you think the big differences we're going to see in kind of their way of leadership, if that makes sense? You know, she did that large declassification with the COVID-19 and Fauci stuff right on her last day. But what are some of those differences you think we're going to see from their leadership?
Yes, Gabby has experience as a soldier and someone who is in high stakes situation where there are matters of life and death, and she certainly had the loyalty of the America First patriots and loyal employees of that particular portion of our executive branch and our government. And I see Pulte being no different, but he does come from a world where he has been a private citizen, he's been a merchant, a developer. In that way, he has rapport with Donald Trump, and both being builders by trade. They're builders, and they're men who understand risks and reward and investments and portfolios. But I want to add also that for years now, Bill Pulte has been adored by veterans. Tom Sauer, Robert Maness, these are two men who are respected and adored, frankly, as veteran advocates, both of them veterans themselves. And they have gone to bat for Pulte for years because what Bill has done, philanthropic work, charitable giving, service to America's veterans. So he's someone that has that, you could say, existing heart for veterans and understands that the decisions that are made in the Office of National Intelligence are those that affect the livelihoods of men and women out in the field. And if anything could potentially compromise the safety, should it be revealed, should it be declassified, well, obviously he wouldn't do that. So despite his different skill set, his different experience, his different credentials, I believe his talent stack uniquely qualifies him for this transitional period before eventually, we hope, Jay Clayton takes that job from him.
Josh, with just about 15 seconds left, of the things that could be declassified, which would be the most impactful, or the thing that you would like to see declassified the most?
Yes, well, as the author with Jack of Proof, the first and really only private investigation into the matter of Donald Trump's attempted assassinations, the first two more recent ones during the campaign, we found a number of things that we were not able to publish for the safety of those involved, and we didn't want to dox anyone. We have our own hypotheses as to what really happened that day in Butler and then eventually in West Palm Beach, Florida, during the campaign, when they basically had to take, had to take their opportunity to do what they can. And like we say in Inhumans, this is what they do every single time. I would like to know the full extent of the truth, and if it does in fact validate what Jack and I suspect really went on that day in Butler, Pennsylvania.
All right, Joshua Lisec, thank you so much for being with us today and for your wisdom. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And now we're going to toss to Jack Posobiec, who was on the tarmac earlier in North Dakota. We want to take a look at that right now. Cue it up, guys.
Jack Posobiec landed here in Bismarck, North Dakota, completed the inaugural flight on the new Air Force One. The flight on board is absolutely comfortable. It's extremely modern, ultra modern. You could say a much faster plane as well, almost hitting speeds about 600 miles an hour on the ground, and certainly one where the flight itself was very comfortable, no turbulence at all, smooth sailing the entire way, no air pockets, nothing at all to speak of in the air. the food, as Air Force One always is, was absolutely incredible. And again, all of the systems just working out perfectly well, perfectly fine for everything that we have. We've got Caroline Levitt saying hi. She's saying she's welcome back. We have Stephen Miller, also the one and only Stephen Miller. You excited for today, Stephen?
Couldn't be more excited.
We're more excited. What are you excited to see out here?
Well, I've never been to this beautiful, great state, North Dakota.
We're going to find out why Teddy Roosevelt loved it so much, aren't we?
Yes, I can't wait. And Man in the Arena, one of the greatest presidential speeches of all time.
It's almost like he was writing it in prediction of someone who would become president years later. I don't know.
Maybe his name is Donald J. Trump.
Maybe.
And maybe we're going to hear from him today. Tune in.
Maybe. It's going to be great. Posobiec here, live, North Dakota, with the president's senior staff here. Almost like
you talk about influencers. These are influencers, and they're friends of mine. Jack Posobiec. Where's Jack? Jack, who's done a great job.
All right, and we are back on Human Events Daily. I'm Beau Davidson along with Beni Rae Harmony. We do want to get you to President Trump. I believe he is in North Dakota at the Teddy Roosevelt Library. He took a train ride, as we said earlier, to this particular library. And this is a momentous event, as you can imagine. You got Air Force One, the brand new edition of it, flying to North Dakota. We've got Jack Posobiec on the ground there. You just saw him on the tarmac. So he's part of this maiden voyage. And so there is a certain historical significance to this. We do want to stay with the president, and I believe he is taking some questions. So let's take a live look at this right now.
The president will be doing a recording, and when it opens on Sunday, you'll hear his voice here. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds? Who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat.
See there, President Trump is at the Theodore Roosevelt Library in North Dakota. You know, what you just heard, Beni, I want to bring you back into this. Oh, are we taking some, I think we are getting some questions. Let's go back to President Trump.
Thank you. It's really great being here. You've done a phenomenal job. And those words, I've heard them before many times, and nothing more beautiful, nothing more true. It's true. The man in the arena, or the woman in the arena, I guess we probably have to add on today. But it's an honor to be here. It's an honor to be at this great museum, great library, great center, and it's a very special place. I think it's going to do very well. It's a part of the country that I love, and I think they love me because I have the all-time record in presidential voting, and that's an honor because they are the people that built America. So thank you very much, and we appreciate it. And we look forward to saying a few words later. We're going to be making a speech in a little while, and hopefully it will be representative of what they stand for out here and what Teddy stood for, because he stood for a lot. Thank you very much. Great job.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
This kind of been the section of the presidents that he had. Now he's in that third party run. I think it's a really meaningful moment.
So we saw President Trump kind of reacting to that man in the arena speech. And Benny, I think what's so amazing about this is every American should hear that speech. And there's some lines towards the end there. You know, this is all about the critic, because the whole purpose, Benny, is that it's not the critic who counts. We know that President Trump has had a zillion critics, but the critics don't count. It's the guy in the arena. It's the man with the blood, sweat, and the tears. But this last line, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat. You think about all those critics out there in the media, all the chatty Cathys that say, look how bad this guy is. And they would never know victory or defeat because they've never put themselves in that position, Benny.
No, that speech, every time I hear it, it gives me chills, because not only for President Trump and all the things that he's been through and the amount of critics that he's had, whether it was when he was an entrepreneur or now as president, it's something everybody can learn from. I think that speech should have to be studied and memorized in high school before you graduate, because the amount of life lessons that are in that speech about not caring what people think and you being the one in the arena, it's so powerful to with social media, with everything that we see and hear and how we compare ourselves to others. Don't compare. It is the man in the arena that it's just so powerful. It truly gives me goosebumps every single time. And I really hope that recording is going to be of President Trump, that they just said that he's going to be doing some sort of recording that will be played whenever the library opens. And I hope it's that one.
Yeah, and Benny, I'll admit I've never been to a presidential library, and shame on me for not going to one, because I think these are such remarkable historical fixtures. And, if ever I'm out in North Dakota, it's a state I've never visited, I would certainly go to this, because when I heard the music, it gave me chills. You think about America in her 250th year, right? This is important stuff. This is American history. And what we heard today is an iconic speech by an iconic president with another iconic president standing by. So we'll have more of Human Events Daily when we come right back. Stay with us.
Jack? Where's Jack? Where is he? Jack, I want to see you. Great job, Jack. Thank you. What a job you do. We have an incredible thing. We're always talking about the fake news and the bad, but we have guys, and these are the guys who should be getting Pulitzers.
Welcome back to Human Events Daily. Beau Davidson here alongside Beni Rae Harmony in our D.C. studios. We're filling in for Jack while he is visiting with the president, touring North Dakota. He just was aboard Air Force One in its maiden voyage. We do want to get to some news of the day. So many Supreme Court decisions have come out in the past several days that we have to talk about. One of the big ones, of course, is the Supreme Court decision on birthright citizenship. And we want to welcome in our guest, Dr. Chloe Carmichael. She's a doctor and author of the book, Can I Say That? Dr. Carmichael, thanks for being with us on Human Events Daily today.
Thank you, Beau. It's great to be with you. And Benny, great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so Dr.
Go ahead, Benny.
No, I want to, you worked in a hospital where some of these birthing tourisms that, because of the Supreme Court ruling of birthright citizenship, these mothers come over from foreign countries and they give birth to children here so that they can have those citizenship. So you've worked in some of these public hospitals. Can you tell us a little bit about what that experience was like and what the process of these mothers coming in and giving birth? Just tell us your story.
Yeah, thanks. So I've worked in various public health settings where I've encountered some of these situations. For legal reasons, I have to make it very clear that I'm not naming any particular place. I worked in a variety of public health settings. And through that work as a clinical psychologist, I absolutely encountered more situations than I can count of women coming from overseas And they were, referred to a psychologist in kind of the social services type department because they didn't have jobs, they didn't have finances, they had no way of supporting themselves. They just arrived here pregnant and said, I need help. And so as part of that process, I would ask them if they needed help getting connected to job programs. And what always shocked me, and this is just my personal experience, this isn't obviously true for all places, but what I encountered in multiple settings was that they would tell me no. And they would actually say often, that they were perfectly content with our welfare system. And sometimes this would almost, I think, seem to them like a form of self-sufficiency, like, oh no, I am frugal, I can live on your, welfare system. And I just wanted to share this as a psychologist because I see so many situations where people raising this concern are told this never happens, or that this is racist and xenophobic to even imagine would ever happen. And since I've seen it happen myself, and my whole book is about the importance of speaking up and telling the truth about things so that we can keep clarity about what's going on, I just wanted to share that.
Okay, well, Dr. Carmichael, you hit the nail on the head. You're in psychiatry, so you deal with the psychological component of attracting people to this country. And you talk about the importance of free speech. Why is it then that there are not more medical professionals like yourself that can speak out and saying, look, I've been in the clinical setting, I understand what's going on. Not only do these mothers want to come in here and have the baby, but they're perfectly happy basically taking advantage of the welfare system. They have no interest in participating in our economy. So why can't more medical professionals like yourself speak out about this?
A few reasons, Beau. So first of all, I'm obligated to clarify I'm in psychology, not psychiatry. But the reason to get it, the reason is because it's scary to speak up. So first of all, my entire field, I discuss this a little bit in my book, is literally 90 to 95% left-leaning. It's just a, quote, coincidence. But yet these programs typically always recruit for people that are going to share the department's, social justice agenda, and then of course it colors the type of research that they do. As somebody who values free speech, I spent a lot of those years really holding my tongue. I was afraid of backlash. So I think fear of backlash, Beau, is one reason why more doctors don't speak up. And then also just because of the selection bias of who's even getting into these programs. I think if my program knew how I really felt about many of these topics, they might not have even admitted me.
And doctor, what do you wish the American people knew about this topic specifically with this ruling? I also wanted to point out, I spoke to a couple young women the other day who actually said that they want to have more kids so that they can get more welfare, they can get more Social Security, they can get more benefits from the government because they don't want to work, but they want to have kids so that they can basically live off that income. And so the fact that not only other countries are doing this, but people in our country are too, I think it shows maybe that's why some of these people think that they can come over and give birth, because they sometimes see, more on the liberal side of Americans doing this. But going forward, what do you want Americans to know about this specific topic and what these people are doing to our country?
Yeah, well, gosh, Beni, when you first started to say you talked to women that were having more kids, I was hoping you were going to say because we need to take our country back, right? So,
yeah,
ladies out there, husbands and wives, let's do our part. But what I want people to know is really just that it does happen. Again, that's part of the point of my book, is that if we don't tell the truth, if one person isn't willing to, call out the emperor's new clothes and to say, yes, this does happen. Yes, our welfare system does attract people who, very accurately and logically perceive that they can come here and, receive income essentially for oftentimes literally doing nothing. Of course they realize that. And if nobody will say it because we're all afraid of being called racist or homophobic or xenophobic, it's whatever they'll call you, then what happens is we get what's called a false social consensus. We all look around and listen and we say, well, nobody else is talking about this, so therefore I must be the only one who thinks this, and so maybe I'm wrong about that. And it's a normal psychological process that if nobody else is saying that the emperor has new clothes. We think we're the only one. And so that's why it's important that we just learn how to speak up and say what's on our mind, whether it's a question or something we think is true or something we've observed to be true. We just can't allow ourselves to be silenced out of fear because it warps the social consensus.
Dr. Carmichael, it's interesting you say that. I didn't know until I got to South Florida that there was a very large Russian population down here, especially in the Sunny Isles area. And you can go some areas and all they're speaking is Russian. And I learned that there are a number of OBGYNs here that are specifically designed to deal with this very situation, which is the Russian mother comes over here, they have the baby, and wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, that kid is an American citizen. So I've seen it not firsthand, but I'm aware of it because I was told about the types of OBGYNs that do this very thing for anchor babies and for birthright citizenship. So it's a very real thing, and it's an issue, and so I appreciate your...
Oh, in fact, it goes a step further. Thank you. I just have to say, Beau, it goes a step further. You're talking about women who actually come over here. There are also cases that I have been privy to where you could have a family in China or Russia, and they will contract an egg donor and a sperm donor and a surrogate here that will give birth to a baby. The Chinese or Russian parents never even set foot here. There's a hired nanny that is legally authorized to take possession of the baby upon delivery, and then can take the baby to the parents, the quote parents overseas that just simply genetically arranged for this baby to be created and born here. So I mean, the depths of how far and twisted this can go are incredible. And from a psychological perspective, I just want Americans to know if something is really not sitting with you right about this birthright citizenship thing, it is okay to talk about it and to ask questions.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Well, we got about a minute left, Doctor. I wanted to ask you this, pivot just for a moment on the SCOTUS decision on not allowing men and women's sports. Psychologically speaking, since this is your field of expertise, how important is that for a young girl to know that she can be in her locker room and get dressed without a man or a boy pretending to be a girl in her presence? I think there's got to be a strong psychological victory for this. So give you about 45 seconds to talk about it.
Yes, it's essential not only for the obvious sense of safety for women and girls. We're evolutionary, hardwired, coded to sense danger, and we want to guide women and girls to respond to that sense of danger. Not to feel like they have to plaster on a smile and pretend like it's okay. Also, just from our sense of reality testing, from our basic connection to logic and reality in the world around us, whether we're talking about boys or girls, to try and force them to pretend like they don't see what they see and know what is obvious, that tinkers with their sense of reality. And lastly, it's also not good for boys. I have a son. I would never want to tell him as a football player he has to go take down that girl pretending to be a boy and just throw her to the ground. I don't want him to be put in that situation either.
Well, Dr. Carmichael, that's what you're saying is so important. Everyone needs to hear what you're saying because there is a psychological component to this, just like there's a psychological component to birthright citizenship that no one's really wanting to talk about. So thank you for pulling back the curtain on that. We really appreciate you.
Thank you,
Thanks
Doctor.
so much for having me. FreeSpeechToday.com.
Absolutely. And now we're going to go to President Trump, who was just speaking at the Teddy Roosevelt Library. Let's take a look.
Every day a president faces storms most people never see. Keep your nerve and remember the nation comes first. You get through. I know you know that feeling yourself.
Well, I appreciate those words. Those words are fantastic. And I just want to say it's an honor to be with you today. We are making a little bit of a tour, some of the fantastic things you've done.
It's the Jack Posobiec Appreciation Hour. I can say confidently, I think Josh Shapiro would be the vice presidential nominee if it wasn't for Jack Posobiec. And that is, I'm being honest.
And welcome back to Human Events Daily. Beau Davidson and Beni Rae Harmony filling in for Jack right now. We've got this really cool clip. You saw it before the break, and it's President Trump talking to Teddy Roosevelt. That's how great technology is today. We do want to take a look at this because I want to get you just to see the wildness of this. So let's go ahead and cue up that tape of President Trump talking to former President Teddy Roosevelt.
Every day a president faces storms most people never see. Keep your nerve and remember the nation comes first. You get through. I know you know that feeling yourself.
Well, I appreciate those words. Those words are fantastic. And I just want to say it's an honor to be with you today. We are making a little bit of a tour, some of the fantastic things you've done.
So just so our audience knows, Jack Posobiec has this live exclusive footage. So what you're seeing in basically real time is some pretty amazing footage there of what's going on at the Teddy Roosevelt Library, an iconic president, obviously, quote unquote, meeting another iconic president. We do want to bring in Steve Gruber, the host of America's Voice Live. Steve, it's great to have you. I know your show is coming up in just a few moments. I do want to get to some of the Supreme Court cases because there's certainly that's dominating the headlines. And I'd love for you, if you could, to get into the heads of the Supreme Court justices who voted this down, essentially, voted birthright citizenship and said that if you're born in this country, you are a citizen no matter what. And I believe that's going to be Kavanaugh, Barrett, and Roberts. Mm-hmm. How did they read that in terms of subject to the jurisdiction thereof? What was their logic on this in reading those words?
There is no logic there, Beau. Beni, nice to see you as well today. Look, the fact of the matter is the 14th Amendment was never intended to do this. If you go back to the senators that put this together and talked about it, they were clear. It didn't mean that any pregnant woman on the planet was carrying a potential American citizen. That's not what it means. It's never supposed to mean that. They blew it. They got it wrong. And they could have just stopped it saying, well, President Trump does not have the power to do this because like every amendment, there's verbiage after the fact that says Congress will enact laws to support as such and so forth. They didn't do that. They went a lot further and basically made it so it's either going to be a constitutional amendment or something like that to get this thrown back out. It's a terrible decision. It goes entirely too far. It takes the power away from we the people. And that really is the problem here. And so that's why it's going to be tough to overcome the way they wrote it. And Amy Coney Barrett has to be the biggest disappointment to President Trump through 2 terms now. There's just no question. She has turned out, she doesn't like election day. She likes election season. She thinks that any pregnant woman on the planet is carrying a potential American child. All they have to do is get one toe on American dirt, and that's an American. And 35 years after that, if they go back to China or Kenya or Uganda to grow up, doesn't matter. They can come back at 18 and vote, or maybe they can mail their ballots in from Beijing and then come back when they're 35 and run for president. It's absolutely outrageous.
And Gruber, I'm curious, what happens next? So we saw the Supreme Court decision. Does this now go to Congress? What does the future hold for this decision?
Well, Brett Kavanaugh put that into his concurrence that Congress has the right to adjust this, but the overall decision does not say that. So I think the only path forward is a constitutional amendment, a Convention of States, Article 5 convention, or an amendment to the Constitution, which takes 38 states to ratify. It's a disastrous opinion, but it only extends the status quo. That's the only thing I can say that gives me any pause to say, okay, maybe we're okay. It only extends the status quo. It does not give any additional power, but it's a ridiculous decision. Look, if you travel from South America and go through several countries on your way to America pregnant, or you fly to American Samoa as a Chinese national and have a child, that was never the intention, never the intention of the people that put through the 14th Amendment. It was to make sure that the children of formerly enslaved people had full constitutional rights. That was the point of the 14th Amendment, period, paragraph.
Yeah, and Steve, I was looking at this, and I think maybe 25 or 30 or so other countries have similar laws to ours, but there are about 50 others that do not, that are far more restrictive. So it's not like this is supposed to be, how the world should treat this. I think I was maybe mostly encouraged by Justice Alito's dissent because he said this decision may be short-lived. He knew that citizenship was not intended to be this way. And everybody should read that dissent because I think it's really good. But to me, Steve, that also is saying he's laying out the groundwork for, if it is going to be short-lived, what needs to come next. And on the morning show on Sunrise this morning, we did talk to Jim Jordan. He seems to think that they can craft some legislation around this, but that means Congress has to act. And we know how that goes, especially with the Senate, that Byron... Exactly. And we know what Byron Donald said about the Senate. They suck. So what do you do?
You say Byron Donald's?
Which
You're
I
right.
agree with.
That's what you say. You're absolutely right. By the way, Teddy Roosevelt, born the 27th of October, same as myself. Just wanted to throw that out there, a little point of fact.
Well, actually, that's good. That's good that you brought that up, Steve, because let's talk about Teddy Roosevelt. You're a historian. Steve Gruber always gives us probably some of the greatest encyclopedia facts in the world. Tell me what Teddy Roosevelt did historically. And there are many things from conservation to, to just who he was, the man in the arena speech. Talk to us historically about Teddy Roosevelt and how he paved the way for a guy like Donald Trump. I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Well, here's the most important thing in the context of your question, Beau. Teddy Roosevelt, TR as he was called, was the real American. Grew up as a sickly child, learned to get stronger, became a boxer, held boxing matches on the lawn of the White House. But what he said, one thing that he said in particular that comes to mind here, a hyphenated American is no American at all, meaning Mexican American, Chinese American, African American. Either you're an American or you're something else. A hyphenated American is no American at all. You're either all in or you're not. And I agree with that, especially in 2026. You've got a divided nation. Everybody wants to put something in front of their name. You're this American. You're that American. No, I am a proud American. No hyphen necessary. And he said it, a hyphenated American, no American at all. And I agree with him on that.
And Gruber, what do you think of what we've seen of President Trump so far at this library and just, all in general, the opening on July 4th. And, the biggest thing when I think of Teddy Roosevelt, I think of Night at the Museum. I think that's the right Roosevelt if I have to guess, but that's who I think of is whenever it was kind of like set around him. But what is your opinion on just all that President Trump is doing and going out there at such an important time? And, he has so many other things to do, but this is very important to him. And obviously, you know a lot about Teddy Roosevelt and President Trump. So give us just your opinion on those two roads crossing.
Well, I think it was interesting that Teddy Roosevelt was thinking he was not going to win the election after he had assumed office when McKinley was shot in Buffalo at the World Exposition and died a few days later, and he became president. The people were lined up against him. The senators were lined up against him. And so when it came time for re-election, he got on a train like we saw the president coming off from right there. And he went around the nation speaking from the back of a train car to ordinary people. Everybody deserves a square deal. The working man deserves a square deal. That was what he told people. And it resonated across this country. From rail yards to schoolhouses to back roads, every place those train tracks went, Teddy Roosevelt, he went himself and spoke to real Americans. And he listened to them, what their concerns were, what it was going to take for, for this country to become what it is. He turned America, he was the first president that really accepted executive power, and he really turned America into the world power it became. He was the one that laid the foundation. And so as I watch this, I see President Trump getting off that train. Teddy Roosevelt was the epitome of picking yourself up by your bootstraps and being a real American. I think he's a great president. 26th president of the United States, but I know you guys knew that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course we knew that, Steve. Well, I would like to, you mentioned that he had boxing matches on the White House lawn. Well, President Trump just had a UFC fight on the lawn. Not too bad. A little bit of a correlation there. But let's address the famous speech. It's not the critic who counts. We talked about this earlier. I think about that speech. President Trump was listening to it earlier as he was at the Teddy Roosevelt Library. I think it's a speech everyone should hear. Every American should hear it. The critics are those who have been criticizing Donald Trump, some of them long before he became president, but certainly amplified when he did become president, when he came down that escalator. A lot of those critics, they'll know neither defeat nor victory because they don't have the stones to get in the arena. Talk about those critics, Steve, and also about how many of those critics have had to shut their mouths. The media infiltrators, those who have wished ill will upon this president, if he cured cancer, would find a reason to hate on him. That's who I want you to address as those critics, because that's what Teddy Roosevelt sells so beautifully.
Yeah, if Donald Trump cured cancer, they would say he put oncologists out of work. That would be the complaint. You put all these doctors out of work, they'd find something. Right. Yeah. It's a sad state of affairs, and we should look to all of these FIFA fans, all these soccer fans in America saying, we were lied to by the media. Of course you were. You were lied to by the media. America is a wonderful place. If you want to hate America, watch the mainstream media. If you want to love America, drive across it. Go meet people. Shake their hands. Go to Buc-ee's or Waffle House or wherever you might travel. Find out about this country, this great country of ours that we will commemorate Independence Day 250 years on Saturday. It's a remarkable place with great people, and our greatest days still lie ahead. They do.
And don't forget about the ranch dressing. We cannot overlook the ranch dressing as well. But you're right, Steve. We are in our 250th year, and every European's trying to take ranch dressing back over. I think it's actually so cool. We've got USA tonight playing Bosnia and Herzegovina. I'm going to be watching that. I don't even like soccer, and I'm watching it. I think there's a real spirit of pride and patriotism. And I've got a toss actually right now to the governor of North Dakota speaking, Steve. So have a good show on AVL. Thank you, sir. Sorry, didn't hear you.
That is choosing to spend part of this historic week right here in Medora. This is President Trump's 4th time visiting our state, his 3rd as president, and we are excited to welcome him back to commemorate